We're looking at homework from section 5.3. This is question number 17. In a recent study on world happiness, participants were asked to evaluate their current lives on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 represents the worst possible life and 10 the best possible life. The mean response was 5.3 with a standard deviation of 2.2. A. What response represents the 89th percentile? B. What response represents the 64th percentile? C. What response represents the first quartile? So let's look at part A. In part A, we're looking for the 89th percentile. That means we're looking for an area of 0.89 to the left of our z-score. Since the table has 4 decimal place accuracy, we'll be looking for 0.8900. We're going to look for this on the positive side of the standard normal distribution table because 0.89 is greater than 0.5. 0.8900 does not appear in the table, so we are going to use the value that is closest to it, which is 0.8907. That corresponds to a z-score of 1.23. Keep in mind, this question doesn't ask for a z-score, it asks for the response value. So we are going to have to actually find the response. That requires us to use the x-value formula from our notes. The x-value formula is that x is equal to mu plus z times sigma. We plug in all the values that we have. The mu is 5.3, the sigma is 2.2, and we just found a z-score of 1.23. We multiply, and we get 5.3 plus 2.706, which is 8.006. Rounded to 2 decimal places, the response that represents the 89th percentile is 8.01. Let's look at part B. In part B, the 64th percentile is P64. That has an area of 0.64 to the left. Since the table has 4 decimal place accuracy, we're going to look for 0.6400 in the body of our table. 0.6400 is not on our table. The closest value that we have is 0.6406. That corresponds to a z-score of 0.36. But we're not looking for a z-score here, we're looking for a response. So that means we're going to have to use the x-value formula. The x-value formula, x equals mu plus z times sigma. We have all the values in this problem. The mu is 5.3, the sigma is 2.2, and we just found a z-score of 0.36. So we get 5.3 plus 0.36 times 2.2, which gives us 5.3 plus 0.792. Added together, that's 6.092. We want to round that off to 2 decimal places. And so the response that represents the 64th percentile is 6.09. Lastly, in part C, we're finding the first quartile. Remember that the first quartile is the same as the 25th percentile. So that means we're looking for an area of 0.25 to the left of our z-score. Since the table has 4 decimal place accuracy, we'll look for 0.2500 on the table. But 0.2500 is less than 0.5, so we need the negative side of the standard normal distribution table. 0.2500 is not on the table, so we're going to find the value that is closest to it. That's going to be 0.2514, which corresponds to a z-score of negative 0.67. Again, we don't want a z-score for our answer. We want the response from this scale of 0 to 10. So we plug that into the x-value formula. In this case, x equals mu plus z times sigma. The mean is 5.3, sigma is 2.2, and we just found the z-score of negative 0.67. We plug those values in and multiply. So this is 5.3 plus negative 1.474, which when we add, we get 3.826. Rounded to 2 decimal places, the response that represents the first quartile is 3.83. That's your final response, and that's your answer.